Trisha's moving in with you. We talked it over, Mom said, pouring me some wine. I nodded. Then I put the copy of the purchase agreement on the table. The house wasn't mine anymore. Only they didn't know that yet. Sometimes you don't even have to walk into a room to realize you've already been taken out of the equation. You've just been called in to see how they solved it without you. I walked into my parents' kitchen and almost immediately realized something was wrong. You know, it's like watching a play where you've learned all the lines, except you're not in the script. There were plates of serving dishes, napkins with birds on them, turkey on the table, and my little sister Trisha, sitting at the head of the table like a goddamn first lady. Judith, our mother, was tending to the stove. Ronald, our father, was watching the sports news on his phone, pretending he didn't know where he was at all. And there was silence in what I would call how to talk a sheep into getting its hair cut short. Carolyn, we've made up our minds, Judith said without turning around. Trisha's going to stay with you for a while. Just until she's stronger. I didn't really understand what they decided. I had no request, no invitation, not even a hint that such a thing was possible. And then Trisha, still holding her wine glass, added, I've already made a list of what I need to buy. Just the essentials. You're lucky I know how to live compactly. If I'd been slapped in the face, I might have been less surprised. Wait, are you saying she's moving in with me? Yeah. You live alone anyway. And your guest room is empty. We thought it made sense. That we was like a knife through glass. I wasn't in it. I wasn't in it at all. The plate in front of me stood like a wet accusation. I couldn't even pick up a fork. My head was buzzing. I tried to digest. They were discussing this behind my back. Planned it. Decided. And now handed it out to me as a finished fact. I remembered the boxes in the garage that Trisha had left for a while. I remembered the conversation I overheard, something about a new beginning and a cozy corner. And then I saw her Pinterest and there was a board. My new room. Captioned, Tranquility Corner. Inspiring pink. Pink. An MY house. An MY room. The board was created 2 weeks ago. I mean, she knew. They all knew. And me? I was supposed to slam the door and make avocado toast. I didn't say a word. I just ate. Or tried to. The wine was sour, the turkey overdone. Or maybe it was just that I couldn't swallow the lies anymore. The next morning I got up at 6 o'clock, opened my laptop and called my real estate agent. Hi. I'm looking to sell my house. Quickly. No talking. Barbara, the agent, cringed slightly but quickly got to work. 2 days later I had a photographer. 3 more days later I had a listing on the website. The house looked like every marketer's dream in the photo. Bright, spacious, ready for a new chapter. No one knew anything. Not Trisha, not my parents. I played the silent treatment, but inside I was seething. I wasn't just selling the house. I was tearing out the role I'd been handed when I was 15 and forgot to take back. The following Saturday, I showed up for family dinner again. Same plates, same napkins, same supporting actress as Princess Trisha. And here was the moment of truth. I sold the house. I'm leaving in 30 days. Trisha's glass slipped. It shattered. Judith shrieked. Ronald mumbled something. Everyone looked at me as if I'd announced that I'd decided to emigrate to Mars. What do you mean you sold it? My mother finally squeezed out. You didn't discuss it with us. Did you discuss Trisha's move with me? The silence was so thick you could spread it on bread. I pulled out the papers. Copies of bills, debts, repair costs. A list of the expenses I was pulling on my own, including the new boiler that broke in February, and for which no one had even asked. Is this revenge? Judith hissed. It's a boundary. And you know, at that moment no one stood up and applauded. No one rushed to apologize. Instead I got a bunch of messages. You traumatized your sister. Family is sacred. How could you? In the office, one coworker, the one who always pretended she didn't care about me, came over and said, I hear you're in trouble. I hope you can handle it. With a face like I'd stolen a steak from her yesterday. I started getting passed around. Relatives called, sent passive-aggressive postcards. And Trisha, judging by her social media, turned into a martyr with Wi-Fi posts, stories, crying selfies, quotes about betrayal of those closest to her. But what struck me the most was the call from the notary. Someone, guess who, was asking if they could challenge the deal with the house. That's when I realized they don't just want my life. They think they own it. And that's when I decided enough was enough. Enough with the silence. No more pretending everything's okay. I'm gonna get everyone together. I'm gonna show them the truth. Not to justify myself, but to stop being a stage set in their cozy lies. The third day after dinner, I got a letter from my second cousin Linda. We hadn't spoken in about 6 years, but now she decided to explain to me how life works. You're the oldest. You have to be an example. Trisha is going through a difficult time. I didn't respond. I just saved the letter in a folder called How to Explain to Me What I'm Obligated to Do. Nights I sat in the empty living room looking at Trisha's boxes. They stood like ghost suitcases, forever packed but never leaving. I remembered helping her get out of one mess after another. She got kicked out of college. I paid for classes. Did she get a job? Didn't last a month. There was always a reason and someone to back her up. Ronald once said. She just hadn't found herself yet. She was 28 at the time. I was 32. I'd already paid off my car, closed my parents' credit card and bought them a new TV. Nothing for me. Then I got a call from Maeve, an old friend. When she heard my voice, she said, "You sound like a person whose soul and coffee maker broke on the same day." We talked for 2 hours. For the first time in a long time, I didn't pretend to be coping. "You know," she said, "that what you did is not betrayal. It's a recovery. I wonder how many years it takes to stop being someone's crutch?" I found a card from Judith in my old mailbox. She used to give me these for birthdays, but this one was for no reason. "You've always been strong. We just didn't know you were hurting. Come home. Come home. Home. To where? To the roll? To the shadow? The silence." I tore up the card. I felt like I'd cut off an old pain, like an unnecessary appendix. The sale went quickly. The buyer was found almost immediately, a young couple full of hopes and plans. They fell in love with my kitchen. They said, "You can feel the care in here." I almost laughed. Care? Yeah, not about me. The final push was a note from Trisha. She left it on my porch. It had 3 words. "You ruined everything." And signed. No date. I put the note on the refrigerator. As a reminder. Not of guilt. Of freedom. And then I knew. Now they'd hear everything. Not the tantrums. Not the screams. The truth. Cold dry paper. Numbers, receipts, dates. Everything they ignored. Everything they've built their cozy lies on. Soon. Soon. I've set the meeting for Saturday. No dinners, no candles. A simple room in the library, plastic chairs, a long table, and a carafe of water, just like a soap opera where they tell the truth, not bake pies. I didn't want to make it cozy. They had plenty of coziness. They had plenty of guilt. What they lacked were facts. I went in first. I laid out papers, printouts, receipts. Every piece of paper like a brick in the wall I was going to put up. People started pulling in. First Gary, my uncle, who always seemed a little aloof, but today was the first time he looked at me humanly. Then Maeve with coffee and a face full of silent approval. Then Loretta from the office dash, just to listen. And finally them. Judith, wearing a pearl necklace as if she were going to her own authority funeral. Ronald with his eyes downcast. And Trisha at her best. Heeled shoes, tears in her eyeliner, face full of grief and resentment. I didn't say hello. I just pointed to the chairs. We're not here to figure out who loves who. We're here to figure out who pays for what. And who's responsible for what. I spoke calmly. A little too calm. My hands were shaking, but my voice wasn't. I pulled out the first printout. The bill for the roof I'd repaired last year. Next came the plumbing paperwork, insurance, copies of receipts. I wasn't accusing. I was laying out the cards. Facts. Chronology. Each sheet was accompanied by silence. The one I'd had in my head all these years as I tried not to feel used. I don't share this to complain. I share it because you forget that my resources have a bottom. I showed the photo. Me with my keys at my doorstep 9 years ago. Back then I had sneakers with a hole in them and a 20-year loan. But I also had faith that if I did it right, someone would see it. "Carolyn, honey." Judith began. No honey today. I'm not little, I'm not handy, I'm not dependable. I'm a man who is tired of paying for your silence and her infantilization. Trisha flared up. I didn't ask you to sell the house. That's your decision. Did anyone ask my decisions when they were planning my house, my life, my living room? She flailed her arms as if I'd yelled at her, even though I didn't raise my voice a half a tone. Because when the truth comes out, yelling is unnecessary. Are you trying to humiliate us? Ronald finally asked. I want to regain respect for myself. And humiliation is a side effect of what you prefer to think of as the norm. And then Gary stood up. He looked at Trisha and asked, Do you even work? Trisha froze. I have a project. A paid one? Not yet. Finding myself. At 34? Loretta asked. Girl, you found yourself a long time ago. In someone's wallet. The room froze. Trisha jumped up, ran out. Judith followed. Ronald remained seated, stared at the papers. For a long time. I didn't know, he said. You didn't want to know. Neither did anyone else. He didn't say anything. When almost everyone had gone, it was just Maeve and Gary. Maeve looked at me carefully. You have no idea how many women dream of doing what you did. I wanted to believe her, but there was only silence inside. 3 days later, Judith called me. Her voice strained like she was chewing nails. We've been thinking. We can help Trisha buy a place. If you change your mind about the townhouse. I already signed the papers. The house is sold. The townhouse is done. You're welcome to help on your own turf. But Trisha will be unsupported. Finally, let her feel what it's like to grow up. She hung up. No anger. Just closed the door. With a click. But the day didn't end there. In the evening, Trisha showed up on the doorstep. Not crying. No accusations. I need a job, she said. You said something at the meeting. I took out a business card. I handed it over. Starting position. Base salary. No perks. Merit pay. She nodded. Didn't even say thank you. But she didn't give me her card. I closed the door. I went into the kitchen. I made myself some tea. I didn't know what she'd be tomorrow. But I knew exactly what I wouldn't be anymore. Now I could breathe. I'd been up most of the night after the meeting. Not from excitement, from the strange physical sensation of being pulled out of the concrete where I'd been stuck for years. My body ached, but the air felt cleaner. I went through all the papers again. Not because I had doubts. Because I wanted to make sure once again. Yes, all of this really happened. Yes, I really did it. The morning I went to work, and for the first time in a long time, I said no to one of my coworkers who kept dumping her tasks on me. She was surprised as if I'd spit in her coffee. But she didn't ask again. At lunch, Loretta came over and said, It's like you've lost 10 years. A secret? I laughed. Yeah. Sell everything that's holding you back and start breathing. And another call. Mom. Third one this week. Carolyn, do you think this is forever? Living apart like this, keeping your distance. Did you ever think that living without boundaries was abnormal? We just wanted you to be closer. You wanted me to be more comfortable. It's not the same thing. She stopped talking. I heard her lighter click. My mom had started smoking again. On Friday, a bouquet arrived at the reception desk at the office. No note. Just a note that said, Forgiveness is an act of the strong. I doubt it was Trisha. She's allergic to acts of strength. Or maybe it's her. People surprise me. Over the weekend, I went to the suburbs to look at a townhouse. Modest brick, no pretensions. But with a nice south-facing window and neighbors who didn't look like tribunal members. For the first time in years, I imagined myself in a house where no one would enter without knocking. I came home and sat on the balcony. Without fear. No plans. Just with the feeling that for the first time I had only my life. And I realized that not all families are destroyed by scandal. Some fall apart because of the truth. And that's okay. A week later, I got a letter from the bank. The last mortgage payment. Yes, technically it was an overpayment. I could have stretched it out, but I decided otherwise. I didn't want another night living in a house I was paying for with my body and nerves. I chose freedom, even if it cost me all my savings. I revisited old photos. Here's Trisha with her new phone. I was paying for her then. There's my parents in the renovated living room. That's me too. At the time I thought, fine, let them be happy. But now I look at it and realize, I paid to keep them quiet. But there was still noise. I sat down at my desk, opened my laptop and wrote myself a letter. Just, I see what you've been through. And I'm proud of you. funny, of course, but it was more necessary than all their cards and calls combined. On Monday, I got a call from the agency. The new house was ready for occupancy. I went, got my keys, unpacked one suitcase and lay on the floor in the middle of an empty room. The silence was real. Not the kind from resentment, but the kind from freedom. As I fell asleep, one phrase kept running through my head. You're not just moving. You're evicting them from your head. And damn it, I was ready for it. In my new house, I didn't wake up to the creak of other people's footsteps. I woke up to the sun really shining through the window, not to the socket clicking in the hallway where someone had forgotten to turn off the iron again. And for the first time, I didn't feel a sense of anxiety waking up on my day off. My loft wasn't perfect. Yes, some of the wall paneling needed repainting, the bathroom faucet was dripping, and the upstairs neighbors liked dance or we'll dance for you music. But it was mine. A space that no one trespassed into without asking. Not with boxes, not with advice, not with fleeting visits with pots of stewed something. The second week, I decided to start taking pictures again. I got out my old DSLR, dusted it off and went into the city. The signs, the bridges, the faces, everything seemed new. Or was it just me looking differently? On Sunday, at dinner at my parents' house, yes, I still showed up, but by invitation and with only one plate my own, the atmosphere was unaccustomedly quiet. No one discussed my townhouse. No one was throwing "well, you certainly set it up" looks. Trisha showed up too. And oh miracle, no drama. I got the job, she said. At your company. Everyone froze. What position? Ronald asked cautiously, as if afraid of provoking an explosion. Elementary. Operator. They showed me where the coffee machine was. Fair enough. I nodded silently. Not a drop of sarcasm. Not an ounce of condescension. Not because I'd accepted it. It was because frankly I didn't care. After dinner, Mom approached me in the kitchen. Have you thought about moving back closer? We could see each other more often. I'm here, Mom. Just in a different capacity. She nodded. Slowly. Like she'd been rehearsed. But half the lyrics had been forgotten. One evening I sat in a coffee shop and wrote a list. Not things to do. But not to do. Not agree out of guilt. Not to save unless asked. Not to expect to be appreciated. That list I hung on the refrigerator. And then came the letter from Trisha. Paper. It was in the mail. 2 sentences inside. I was angry. But you were right. And signed but with the return address. That's funny. She even apologized with privilege. But still, for the first time in ages, the letter didn't contain a request. Just an acknowledgement. Things went on as usual at work. I did a project I liked, talked business with coworkers, and left at 4 on Fridays. Because I could. Because no one else was hanging on my back, pretending to be an invisible weight. One day Maeve suggested we go camping for the weekend. I said yes. We sat by the fire, drinking tea from a thermos and staring into the darkness. And I said, I'm no longer afraid of tomorrow, because I'm finally living today. At the cafe I now frequented on weekends, a woman came up to me one day. About 60 years old. She said, Are you Carolyn? Is this about the house? A friend of mine told me. I just want to say you did something I wish I had done 30 years ago. I just nodded. Because sometimes a nod is more powerful than applause. 3 months went by. At a family dinner, Trisha was talking about how she planned to rent a place with a friend. Judith didn't interrupt. Ronald didn't avert his eyes. Mom asked, Have you made a budget? And it sounded not like a reproach but like interest. Something had shifted. I wasn't idealizing. We didn't become a healthy family from therapy. But we did become, separate adults with shared memories and boundaries. And that was enough. On the wall in my loft now hung a photo of me against a brick wall, camera in hand, smiling not at the lens, at myself. The caption, Home is not about walls. It's when you don't have to hide. And sometimes I still looked at the business card I'd given to Trisha. She kept it. So maybe she's looking for walls she doesn't have to repaint but build herself. What about me? I built it. Not perfect. Not polished. But my own. You can do that too. Just remember, if someone is taking your air, don't let them sign your oxygen bill. On the wall next to the kitchen I hung another picture. An old one. Me about 10 years ago in my pajamas, holding a paycheck that says paid. Seemed like a victory then. Now it's a reminder. I used to confuse survival with life. Another letter from the bank came, apologizing for the delay in closing the account. I put it next to the letter from Trisha. 2 documents, one officially saying goodbye to a debt, the other almost a parting of the ways. Sometimes in the evenings I turned on some music and just sat on the floor. No thoughts. Not because everything is fine, but because nothing was pressing. It was a luxury I hadn't been able to afford in years. The downstairs neighbor, Mr. Barton, rang the doorbell one day. "Excuse me, is everything all right? You're quiet. Even a cat would drop something." "I'm fine. I'm just breathing." He shrugged and walked away. And I smiled. Because for the first time in a long time, my quiet is not tired but free. At work, one of the interns asked me how I did. I didn't immediately realize what she meant. She pointed to Trisha, who was sitting at a nearby desk typing something, frowning but focused. "How did you get through it?" I said. "I gave up trying to endure. Just got out of that game. And really, I didn't win. I just stopped being the field they were playing on." At Christmas dinner I brought tart tatin. Homemade. Judith gave me a surprised look. "You baked it?" "Uh-huh. I wanted to, so I made it. Nobody talked me into it. Nobody asked me to." "It's good," Trisha said. Quietly. I smiled. I wasn't expecting thanks or recognition. Just a delicious tart. And an evening where no one shared the air. And that was all it took. I didn't write a book. I didn't start a marathon. I didn't ride off into the sunset in a convertible. I just stayed within myself. And that's the biggest turnaround I've ever made. A couple weeks later, Gary called me, just to ask how I was doing. No reason, no purpose. We talked about the weather, the old movie, even the new taxes. And then he said, "I'm glad you didn't give up. We did a lot of things wrong. But you did the right thing." After the call, I sat looking out the window for a long time. I guess those are the kind of words you expect not from your uncle but from your parents. But if someone in the family sees you, it's a breakthrough. I met Trisha at the coffee machine. She was standing there silently chewing on a straw from a cup. No makeup, washed out sweatshirt. "I hate Mondays," she muttered. I shrugged. "Better than hating myself on Monday." She grinned. "Still want me to leave?" "I just want you to decide for yourself where you want to go." She nodded. Slowly. And walked away. No yelling. No clapping. No theater. And that was the new ending. Not a silly fairy tale, but an adult farewell to a role that no one else fit. I was on my way to my office. To the office. To the house. To myself. And for the first time, no one expected me to be anything but me.